from 1983 to 2000, we had a wonderful president, as all our presidents have been, the right person for the right time, Steve Beering. Steve Beering was a medical doctor. He'd actually been dean of the medical school at IU. And people wondered about this IU guy coming to lead Purdue. But believe me, he bled black and gold and was a wonderful, wonderful person for Purdue. Into the 1980s and early 1990s, people were starting to look around the university and saying, you know, this isn't a very pretty place. Purdue was known as building buildings that were Purdue practical. They didn't waste monies on atriums or grand hallways or anything. You walked into a classroom building and you walked into a hallway, and those hallways had classrooms and labs in it. It was Purdue practical. They built this whole campus with red brick. If you look at buildings that John Purdue built long before Purdue in Lafayette, he built them with red brick. He apparently liked red brick. University Hall was red brick. Red brick was what they had here and what they made. And so the whole university was red brick. Furthermore, beginning with the early part of the 20th century when the automobile came about, Purdue University accommodated the automobile. They started off with walking paths, but it took all the walking paths and turned them into streets, and it created surface level parking lots. The whole area in front of what became Hovde Hall was a large oval. There was a fountain in front of Hovde Hall, but there was parking all in front of Hovde Hall. There was parking all over the campus. There was parking behind the Union. Parking lots, parking lots, parking lots. This was a university that accommodated autos. People started saying, why doesn't it accommodate the students? They're all walking. And what can we do to make this campus more beautiful? They even said it looks like a prison. It's just not a pretty campus. Well, our Vice President Treasurer Fred Ford and other people that he worked with, as well as Steve Beering, said, what can we do? We can't tear down the buildings. That just is impossible. What can we do? And they said, well, we can plant trees. We can create parks. We can create malls. We can beautify this campus with artworks and with fountains. And that's what they did. They set about transforming the campus. And one of the first things they did was take down a smokestack, a very tall smokestack over a heating plant, a plant where we made energy, and it was dropping bricks. And people loved that smokestack and didn't want them to take it down. But they insisted they had to take it down, and they put up a tower. And that is the tower that is now over by Hovde Hall. And when people saw that, they realized that these people were on the right idea. The tower was beautiful and certainly much better than the smokestack. Next, they made the Purdue Mall by the engineering buildings, took that parking lot and turned it into a beautiful park area where students now lie and read in the sun during the nice days or take their dogs and chase Frisbees. They took the fountain that had been there that was inappropriate for the design they had and put in something that was more appropriate. It had lights on it, and it shot water way into the sky. They turned it on in the summer. The students weren't even here. They decided to turn it on in the summer, and they announced they would do it. Thousands of people showed up from Lafayette to watch this fountain come on with colors. All of it was a huge hit. They created the parkway over by a new building, Beering Hall, and put the fountain that had been in front of Hovde Hall over by Beering Hall. They created a park, Academy Park, behind the Union Building. They created pathways. They got rid of the parking, the street-level parking, and created parking garages on the edges of campus. They planted trees, they planted flowers, they planted grass, they made walkways. They watched where the students walk and created a walkway in the ground that they'd worn off the grass. The campus became beautiful. And I think today it is a very, very beautiful campus. And that is something that's just come about since the 1990s. And it happened with Fred Ford, our Vice President and Treasurer, and Steve Beering, our President.